Election Commission spent all day hearing 30 challenges to some candidates who want to be on the May primary ballot.
Well, one challenge saw a candidate for Indiana's Senate seat taken off the ballot. He's vowing to fight that decision. 13 News reporter Emily Longnecker explains how he's going to do that.
The candidate is John Rust, who wants to be Indiana's next United States Senator, and he's vowing to go all the way to the Supreme Court if he has to for the chance to do that. John Rust, who wants to run as a Republican in the primary, faced 6 challenges to his candidacy. Republican Congressman Jim Banks is also running for the seat and is already endorsed by the Indiana Republican Party. Challenges to Rust focused on an Indiana law requiring a candidate's party affiliation during their last 2 primary votes to match the party they want to represent in the current election. According to one of Rust's challengers, he voted as a Republican in the 2016 primary and a Democrat in the 2012 primary. Another challenger questioned why Rust didn't vote in the 2018 primary that saw an Indiana Senate seat on the line.
One of the most hotly contested Republican primaries in the history. Mike Braun, Todd Rokita, Luke Messer. If he can't even vote in that primary, that's a problem to me.
Rust recently challenged the constitutionality of the Indiana law requiring him to have the same party affiliation in his last 2 primary votes. The Indiana Supreme Court put on hold a lower court's ruling that would have stopped election officials from removing Rust from the primary ballot based on the party affiliation law. The Indiana Supreme Court has not made a final decision on the constitutionality of that law, effectively leaving the decision up to the Election Commission. Tuesday, members voted to exclude Rust from the primary ballot.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Mr. Rust, I'm serious when I say I would love to see you on the ballot. But as far as I'm concerned, our hands are tied.
After the commission's decision, Rust said he'll appeal it to the Marion County Superior Court as he waits to hear the Indiana Supreme Court's decision.
People are trying to keep, qualified candidates off the ballot because they know they will win. It's the same with Trump. It's the same with me.
Rust has said if the Indiana Supreme Court does not hand down a decision that favors him, he will go all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
The gender-affirming care ban that lawmakers passed last year is now in effect.
Last night, a federal appeals court lifted an injunction on this law. We've got Karen Campbell joining us in studio tonight at 5:30. She's been talking with both sides about what this means for their families. Karen?
Yeah, well, on one side, it's just simply a crushing blow to many families who have children going through this type of care. And on the other side, it's a win for the state. The state says they are just protecting children. Families who are now denied that care for their children are being told they have to wait until their child turns 18. Disappointing and heartbreaking. 2 words the ACLU shared in a statement about Indiana's new ruling banning the state's gender-affirming care. On Tuesday, a federal appeals court lifted a lower court's injunction. The law had been set to go into effect July 1, but is now in effect.
We're saying that if you're under 18, you're not going to get those kinds of irreversible surgeries in the state of Indiana, nor are you going to get hormone treatment.
Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita says the law is about protecting children, but some families see it differently. In April of last year, we spoke with Beth and Nathaniel Clausen. Their 10-year-old daughter, Kieran, had been identifying as a girl since she was 3, receiving care at Riley.
Our child has been living as her true self for the past 7 years. And the idea of her going through the wrong puberty is terrifying for her and terrifying for us.
The ACLU of Indiana had filed a lawsuit on behalf of 4 transgender youth and their families, including the Clausens, as well as a doctor and healthcare clinic. In June of 2023, a federal court issued a preliminary injunction that blocked the law. After Tuesday's ruling, the ACLU released a statement reading in part, "We want all the transgender youth of Indiana to know this fight is far from over, and we will continue to challenge this law until it is permanently defeated and Indiana is made a safer place to raise every family." Rokita says challenging the law is something he's expecting.
If those parents are so set on affirming something that could very well just be a phase in their kid's life, and they want to go and have that torturous surgery, do it outside the state of Indiana.
Something many families may now be forced to do to protect their children. And when we spoke to the Clausens, they told us a decision about health care should be between parents, their children, and their doctor. But again, this is a win for the state, but the ACLU does tell us that this fight isn't over because they expect to continue fighting for the families who need this care.
All right, Karen, thank you for breaking it down. It's a lot of emotions on both sides of this issue.
Yeah.
This afternoon at the Statehouse, lawmakers in the House debated proposed changes to a bill that addresses helping Indiana's second and third graders improve their reading.
Our Emily Longnecker is here tonight to discuss those proposed changes. Emily?
Well, the part of this bill that has had the most debate is the retention piece. Under Senate Bill 1, students who couldn't pass the state's reading test by the end of the third grade would be held back. And today, Democratic lawmakers offered several amendments to try and change that. Democratic lawmakers in the House offered several amendments, among them a proposed change that would have eliminated mandatory retention altogether in Senate Bill 1. Another amendment would have delayed the retention part of the bill until the 2025-2026 school year. If Senate Bill 1 becomes law, the provisions in it would kick in July 1st, including holding students back who don't pass iRead by the end of third grade. Another change proposed by Democratic lawmakers would have excluded students who are still learning English from being held back if they couldn't pass the reading test.
This is not the appropriate time to retain kids. If you want to retain kids, I understand we got to get them to read. It is a crisis, I have that. But it is kindergarten or first grade.
We know that reading is the foundation of all other learning. And so if we can't get this right, a student needs to be retained.
In the end, none of those amendments passed today. Lawmakers in the House still have to vote on Senate Bill 1, and if today's vote on the amendments are any indication, that vote could come on party lines.
The lawmakers are trying to pass a bill that would stop countries that are considered adversaries of the United States from buying or leasing farmland here in Indiana.
This bill would also prohibit the same thing for land near military bases or armories. Emily Longnecker is here to explain how this measure would work. Emily.
Well, so far, this bill has had unanimous support among Republicans and Democrats. When it passed out of the House earlier this session, lawmakers are couching this as a food security issue, which they say is ultimately a matter of national security. House Bill 1183 aims to make sure countries who are adversaries of the United States don't set up shop in Indiana.
This might be the most important bill we have in regard to security of all in the state of Indiana.
So which countries are on that list? According to the federal government, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba are all considered adversaries. But one national security expert testified before the Senate's Agriculture Committee Monday morning, saying that China is the one that keeps him up at night.
Many national security experts, including myself, believe that China represents the greatest threat to our national security in this generation.
According to lawmakers on the committee, there's currently a Chinese company that wants to set up a grain processing plant in northern Indiana, right near the intersection of two railroads.
That's certainly not a mistake, ma'am. They do their homework and they understand what would be a greatest benefit to a community to give them the access that they desire.
According to lawmakers, that company was already denied access in North Dakota, one of 24 other states with laws like the one Indiana lawmakers are trying to pass. Under House Bill 1183, people and companies from foreign adversarial countries would not be able to buy or lease Indiana farmland, mineral, or water rights. They also couldn't buy or lease land within 10 miles of an armory or military maintenance facility, or within 50 miles of a military base. Any foreign company or person that did buy or lease land would have to provide proof they weren't connected to one of the 6 countries that are U.S. adversaries. House Bill 1183 also has an exception for students from one of those 6 countries who go to a university in Indiana and need to rent an apartment. The ACLU of Indiana says the bill goes too far and would punish people who may have left one of those 6 countries years ago, living legally in the United States for decades.
You are telling them they are no longer welcome here except for as employees of someone else. At the end of the day, we just have to kind of step back and understand what the breadth and scope of this bill is and ask whether or not it represents Hoosier values.
It would appear that lawmakers think that this bill aligns with those values. It passed out of committee today unanimously at the Indiana Statehouse. Emily Longnecker, 13 News.
Thank you, Emily. We want to give you some perspective now when it comes to how much farmland across the country there is in the inventory and who owns it.
So the United States has 1.3 billion acres of farmland. Foreign countries own 3% of that land, so that's about 40 million acres.
Canada is the foreign country owning the most U.S. farmland. It owns just over 13 million acres. China owns around 400,000.
So here in Indiana, foreign countries own 2.2% of farmland across the Hoosier State. The Indigo Blue Line has cleared a major hurdle tonight over at the Indiana Statehouse.
Today, Speaker Houston announced a Senate bill that would have blocked the project, and it will not move on to the governor's desk. SB 52 would have banned dedicated bus lanes in Indianapolis. Federal funds for the Blue Line depended on those lanes.
Today, the House Speaker said Indigo agreed to listen to traffic concerns, so the bill would not move forward. The Blue Line will run from Cumberland on the east side out to the Indianapolis International Airport.
An attempt to crack down on spending now stalled downtown at the Indiana Statehouse.
It did not get a hearing today and is not expected to before tomorrow's deadline. This is the bill that would increase punishments for somebody caught spinning more than once.
Someone caught on their second offense would have faced prison time and lost their license under the proposed bill. It was introduced by State Senator Aaron Freeman after a series of spinning incidents and street takeovers that occurred here in Indianapolis last summer.
The bill had a lot of support from police, especially IMPD. Chief Chris Bailey called the bill a good start. He called this kind of activity reckless and stupid and said it has to stop. Now, if the bill dies, that doesn't necessarily mean it's out of the conversation this year. Lawmakers could still add it into a different bill and pass it that way. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it and let you know what happens.
When you call 911 for a medical emergency, you expect help to arrive in minutes.
And state leaders want to make sure that still happens, but our state is currently dealing with a shortage of EMTs and paramedics. So state lawmakers are right now considering a bill calling for a study to take a look at our state's 800 EMS agencies. So they want to learn how many medics they have, how many they still need, and what kind of training they get. They would use that information to look at ways to help at the state level.
Medics say access to be able to train new medics can be a challenge, especially in rural areas.
The numbers are limited, so there isn't much access to paramedic training.
Honestly, it's about saving lives. It's about making sure that when we call 911, that the people that are answering are equipped to the best of their ability to provide those timely and life-saving interventions.
The bill passed unanimously in the House of Representatives and the Senate. It's now headed to the governor's desk for his signature.
State lawmakers passed 2 resolutions today honoring law enforcement officers here in central Indiana who've died in the line of duty. One of the resolutions calls for a mile of I-74 southeast of Acton Road to be renamed the Deputy John Durham Memorial Mile. So this would honor the Marion County Sheriff's deputy who was killed last year. Another resolution calls on INDOT to rename the stretch of U.S. Highway 52 between Davis Road and German Church Road the Officer Breanne Leith Memorial Mile. Leith, as you know, was murdered in 2020, responding to a domestic disturbance call. The man who shot her was convicted last week and tonight awaits sentencing.
More than 1,600 Hoosier kids diagnosed with severe disabilities and other medical issues could be impacted by big cuts to a Medicaid program.
For the past 2 years, the attendant care program has allowed those kids' parents to be paid hourly to care for them at home.
Nearly $1 billion in the Medicaid has a budget shortfall, and the FSSA is looking for ways to make it up somewhere, and this program is one of the items that could be on the line.
13 News Statehouse reporter Emily Longnecker spoke to a single dad who told her the cuts would devastate him.
For the past 2 years, the little light in Matt Roy's life has come from this little boy right here, Matt's 2-year-old son, Eli.
As you see, he's lively and he's spunky and he's very smart, but it's been rough. It's been hard.
Matt's talking about his journey as a single dad after losing his wife, Kristen.
She wanted to have him so bad, and we loved each other. I miss her.
Kristen got COVID 6 months into her pregnancy and had to be hospitalized. Eli was born 3 months prematurely by emergency C-section and spent 6 months in the NICU.
You could put him in my Converse shoe. He was that small.
Kristen never recovered. 2 weeks after Eli was born, his mother died.
They could no longer do anything for her. Her lungs were not working for herself. The machine was doing everything for her, and it was prolonging her agony.
So Matt let his wife go, vowing to do everything to raise Eli the best way he could.
I see her in him a lot, and I see myself in him a lot.
It hasn't been easy, though. Eli has several medical issues that require constant care, like the G-tube he eats through and the oxygen he needs when he sleeps. Recently, he was diagnosed with autism, all of it complications from his premature birth. Matt says being able to get paid through the state's attendant care program has allowed him to earn a living and stay home caring for his son's medical issues.
That has been the only way we've been able to sustain here.
Now with those benefits on the line, Matt isn't sure what he's going to do. His mom helps him, but he says she isn't well either. If FSSA switches Matt to a different program where he gets a daily stipend, he says it won't be enough to cover the care Eli needs.
Where do you think we'd get the money to hire somebody in a situation like this?
Not to mention, says Matt, he knows best how to care for his son.
They would come in with little knowledge of anything that he's been through.
And it's been a lot, even if little Eli doesn't realize it yet. That's why Matt says he's ready to fight the proposed cuts any way he can.
That I'm willing to stand up and fight and speak truth.
For Kristen, for himself, but most of all for the child who's become his little light. Emily Longnecker, 13 News.